Chicago's Black Arts Movement has been a footnote in the history of the Black Arts Movement. And this book deals with the Black Arts Movement. And
this is called the Black Arts Movement.
Yeah.
Right?
Chicago, the information about Chicago, I think, is very limited and narrowed. So, at one time, I thought about just doing a book on the Black Arts Movement. But then it ended up, which I'm working on a book. Are you familiar with this book?
Black Writing from Chicago?
Yeah, that's
this is edited by
Carolyn Rogers.
There's a foreword by Carolyn Rogers. It's edited by Richard Guzman.
Yeah, like it. And excerpts from the works of black writers that lived in Chicago.
Okay.
Not were like natives. Sam is in there. I'm in there. Richard Wright, Sinclair Drake. I mean, it's a great anthology because it's a collection of writers that basically, if they were not homebred, they spent time in Chicago.
Okay, and this is recent. This is copyright 2006.
Yeah, Cyrus Calder. You know, so it's a collection of essays, poems.
Okay, yeah.
That's in this. It's the first of its kind.
Okay.
Black writing from Chicago, just Chicago-based writers, Maury Evans, people that lived here and spent some time in Chicago. So. See, my involvement at 76 years old, I think Sam's 77 or 76, we're almost the same.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I bridged the Chicago Renaissance, which probably started in the late 30s. And my father was very active in that period. I don't know if you had a chance to see the exhibit while you were there.
I did not.
Oh, you need to go back.
Okay.
I mean, the Marion Perkins exhibit, my father, and I'm not just promoting my father because the exhibit is more about a period than my father. My father was very active in that period, which you could identify as the Chicago Renaissance, which came after the Harlem Renaissance. And you had people like Gwendolyn Brooks, Charles White, my father, Marion Perkins. You had Margaret Danner, Margaret Walker. Richard Wright spent time in Chicago. And I could go on a number of names. So I'm the product of that movement, and it blends into the Black Arts Movement, which Chicago began around the mid-60s.
Okay.
So before that, I'm a product of the Chicago Arts Renaissance. That's what it's called. But then, in my 20s, I sort of blended into the Black Arts Movement here in Chicago.
Okay.
So the presentation talks about, you have to see everything as a continuum. You cannot talk about President Obama unless you talked about Denmark Vesey, unless you talked about Fannie Lou Hamer.
Or the Pullman Porters and their political influence in Chicago.
Well, you have to see a continuum. Obama just did not be where he is today on his own. He is a product of a long history of struggle. So, and that first picture is Toussaint Louverture, one of my heroes.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
So, in talking about the Chicago Black Arts Movement, you have to put it in this historical perspective. And this is what I attempted to do in that presentation, to put it in this historical perspective. And people say, well, I mean, to really understand Obama, you always have to go back to Harriet Tubman, Denmark, D.C., Sojourner Truth, because they paved the way in the protracted struggle for freedom that eventually led to Obama being the first, quote, question mark, African American. We take them,
Yeah, that it's interesting that you put it that way, because he is African American, but he has a very different background than the rest of us.
Yeah.
He's got ties directly to Africa that we don't have.
You have to read his book, Dreams of My Father. I've already written a play on Obama, a children's play.
Is that right?
Yeah. When you want to find something, you never can put your hands on it. I write children's plays, and you have to read his autobiography up to that period, Dreams of My Father, because the person who was the greatest influence in his life was his mother, Stanley Ann, the white woman from Wichita, Kansas. She was the one that instilled in him his sense of values, and and people don't even talk about her, but you cannot talk about President Obama without talking about his mother, because he didn't spend that much time with his father. And here it is. It's called The Triumphant Journey of Barack Obama, a drama with music for young people. The music hasn't been written yet, but in the whole concept is that in this play, I have what we call the Council of Elders, of Ancestors. Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, Fannie Lou Hamer, W. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King. I use some of the people from the past to show their achievements in terms of making it possible for Obama to have the journey that he took to become president. And so the music hasn't been written, but I'm sure that I got a couple of people in mind.
Okay.
So history is what? His story, HIS hyphen.
Oh yeah.
Or her story. And we have to tell our story. And for the most part, history has been told by others.
Our story's been told by others, is what you mean?
Yeah. Been told by, and this is like Carter G. Woodson really started Negro History Week, and you. I've just got through tutoring some kids on Lerone Bennett's Before the Mayflower and Benjamin Quarles, The Negro in the Making of America. And they competed in a history contest sponsored by the 100 Black Men. They didn't do too well, but we spent a lot of time on those two books, Before the Mayflower, of course, Lerone Bennett's seminal work, and Benjamin Quarles, who's from Morgan State.
Okay.
And he wrote The Negro in the Making of America. So they had two students from Gwendolyn Brooks High School. They ran off with it.
They were on it.
Yeah, they were on it. Because our kids, even today, if you talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, a lot of them don't know too much about Dr. Martin Luther King. And he's been canonized more than any person you could think of. Now, so it's no use even talking about Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, Malcolm X, and Marcus Garvey. I mean, they really don't know that much about Dr. Martin Luther King.
And that's really kind of a shame.
So, right.
Because he is who he is, and he did what he did.
So how are you going to start talking about some of these other people that made it possible for Dr. Martin Luther King to do what he did? And what was significant, and I just was aware of this. This book here, the following week they had this at Vivian Harsh Library.
Okay.
The Black Maverick. He was before Dr. King, and he started the civil rights movement in Mississippi before Dr. King was in high school.
And why don't you say the name of the book and the writer, just so we can...
It's called The Black Maverick. Dr. T.R.M. Howard. He was a medical doctor, fight for civil rights. And his story has not really been told. This is the first time it's been told. And in reading this, I mean, Dr. King came late in the movement. But this man was out there in the 40s and 50s, organizing people, marching, demonstrating in Mississippi. But the press was not there.
Yes.
And it's not trying to make a comparison between he and Dr. King. It's just trying to say, well, this movement was always going on. It just didn't happen when Rosa Parks, and she wasn't the first person that contested the bus movement, bus discrimination. Anyway, they had a 17-year-old girl did the same thing about 2 years before that.
Is that right?
So it's not a matter of who was first, but we need to show the relationships. They say, who's the first this, who's the first that, the first black this, the first black that.
I think that's part of an issue that I have with black people in this country as a collective, because we think of it in terms of the one, the first, the one who did that, when in fact, in my view, we ought to be thinking more in terms of, like you said, a continuum.
Yes, right.
I contributed to something that was done by a dozen people before me for 120 years.
Right. Made it possible
for me to do this.
For you, for Obama to be first, if they want to call him African American. If you, J.A. Rogers was saying there's 4 or 5, Harding and a couple others that had black blood in them. They could have been, I don't know if you want to prove it through DNA, but and some people think, but he's claimed that especially Harding could have been called African American, because we know that if you have an ounce of black blood, you and I, we're none of us are pure Africans from the homeland as we should be, because of miscegenation and everything. Like, we all got some mixed blood.
That's right. And we got Native American in us. We got some of everything.
Yeah, we all got, And this is why, blacks. It was very common for blacks to both. I got some Indian blood. They didn't want to be all black. I got some Indian blood. You probably do have some Indian blood, because we know that the Indians, they had some slaves. And they intermarried.
And Indians were slaves.
That's right. And they were. So the whole, what was it, the March of Tears, the 5 Indian nations that came to Oklahoma. And they had some blacks as slaves. But then when they freed them, they intermarried. So we all got some mixed blood.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, very soon when you find a pure black because of slavery and miscegenation, and we know that the abuse of black women by black men, and we know also that black men were lynched on the premise that they had violated the white woman. But Ida B. Wells, in her research, found that the minute these black women crave for black men.
Yes.
She did research on that. You know.
That's interesting.
And the white man would hold up the white woman as being the, you know, but a lot of them, Lerone Bennett talks about it in his book, that a lot of these white women, you know, see the strong black, look at today, these athletes.
Yeah.
You know.
Have all kinds of white groupies.
Yeah, so, and we know that white women has been black men have been attracted because of the way beauty has been defined. Mm-hmm. Straight hair, mm-hmm. light skin, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and everything like that. Now that has changed somewhat.
Mm-hmm. But not enough.
Not enough. And so beauty and black women have gone through all these problems mm-hmm. in trying to define who they are. And why do you have so many black athletes marrying white women?
Yeah.
I mean, Kobe.
Well, there's
Tiger Woods.
There's some other issues in that area too. I mean, we don't trust each other.
Yeah.
I mean, black men often don't trust black women.
Yeah.
Black women often don't trust black men,
right, because
they think that we're going to try to pimp them or something. Mm-hmm. And so when this is not, I don't want to make it sound like a stereotype, right, but often a black woman can be approached by a black man, and she might be suspicious. He's being too nice.
But she should be.
Well, yeah, right, because
she's been programmed from history.
Yes, to be suspicious.
So she should be somewhat.
Yes.
Because a lot of brothers are, from slavery.
They're predatory.
They were nothing but studs.
That's right.
The slave master would put them in one, boom, put him in another one. And all he did was father kids. Mm-hmm. He was a stud. Mm-hmm. And you got a lot of studs walking around now. Mm-hmm. So there's some validity in that image. Mm-hmm. It doesn't characterize all black men.
No, it doesn't.
I would say a black woman needs to be. In fact, sometimes I just can't put my hands on things. Yeah, okay. This is a developmental manual for young black males. The very thing that we talked about, evolution of negative images which have characterized some black males from slavery. We're in neo-slavery now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The pimp, the hustler, womanizer.
Then you had the this period in slavery, but it all emanates from slavery.
Yes.
And so I discuss these things with men because I still work with black men. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of work with black males, and I begin to show them how they've been characterized as a result of slavery. And now young brothers want to be gangsters, they want to be pimps. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. It's all the Stagger Lee image.
That's right, and Shan, Stagger Lee, and all of that. Mm-hmm. So, and there's some truth to it. And we want to disavow that. But we have to, like right now, we're in denial. The black man is missing in action. He's AWOL. Mm-hmm. And yesterday I was at the juvenile prison. I go every week. I've been doing this for years.
Is it right? Okay.
Oh yeah. I work with kids. It's part of my prison ministry. I would say 60% of the kids in juvenile prisons have not bonded with their fathers. Some of them haven't seen their fathers. Someone would tell you their father's in jail. So how are you going to raise a kid? You're in jail, And here, your kid is out here in the streets. Mama's doing the best she can. Most of these young men, I asked them, how many of your fathers in jail? Half of them raise their hand. Some of them are raising hand, their grandfathers in jail.
Oh, man.
The juvenile system is the incubator for the adult system.
Yes.
They're criminalizing our young people. I'm not making excuses for this bizarre behavior, but
it's a symbiotic relationship.
That's right. If you come up in a community and you don't have a daddy to discipline you, your mama does the best she can, and she may be a teen mother. You don't have a family support system there. The school is kicking you out. They're not providing you with what you really need to function as a literate person in this society. Other institutions are failing, so you tend to hang out on the streets. This is why this first, I hope I'm not, if I can put my, when I wrote Home is a Dirty Street, the social oppression of black children in 1975, I just can put my hands on it, which deals with the street institution. And that book has been quoted in reference by many people since then. You can have this because I have a lot. I was trying to find.
Thank you.
Yeah. Home is a Dirty Street. I can't give you that.
Okay.
I wrote that in 1975. And what I'm saying in Home is a Dirty Street is that who's having the greatest influence on the socialization of black kids? The streets. The kids spend more time on the streets. They learn history from the streets. They learn biology. They learn everything from the streets because the schools are not successful. The home, we know that's where it should begin, but when you have teen mothers that have not been raised properly, how they gonna raise a kid? But see, we don't want to admit this. And I may be sounding like a Bill Cosby, but a lot of what Bill Cosby said was true.
Yeah.
And we denied it, and we want to denounce Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby said these guys running around, these young girls having babies, and they're not preparing them correctly. So who's going to do that? The institutions are not doing it. The streets, so kids are out there in the streets.
There's an allure of the street.
Yeah.
Because very often, and I'm sure you've encountered this, kids from intact families end up in the institutions that you visit.
Yeah.
Because of the allure of the super nigger in that sheet that you were just showing me, the bad nigger syndrome, the stagger leap. Yeah. They want to be that.
To get recognition out there.
Yes.
And so it's disproportionately with kids from families where the father, I found, there's no doubt about it, 60% of the juvenile population have been reared without a father figure, an active, positive father figure. I also work with ex-offenders at St. Leonard House. I was with them yesterday. They said the same thing. These guys are ex-offenders. They're on parole. Okay. So, I'm not bashing the black man. I know the reasons why.
Yes.
But we make too many excuses. At some point, we need to assume responsibility for our own behavior. The shootings and killings in our community, look, we blame it on race. I understand racism. I understand white male supremacy. They're not going to change it. So, and you're not going to do away with it. A black president is not going to change white male supremacy because it's institutionalized. So, we as a community has to assume responsibility for these kids that are roaming the streets, out of school. What alternatives are we providing them? Not enough.
How do you see black arts fitting into that? Do you think that the arts movement could in some way change that, perhaps solve the problem in some way? Any ideas on that?
Well, I'm not that familiar with the writings of some of the young artists today, but what I have seen just reinforces some of these images. You go to Borders bookstore and you get all these hoochie coochie, books that are written. You probably got a lot of very talented young writers. But what I see on the bookshelves from a large percentage of this population is these hoochie coochie on the cover. The woman got her legs all up. I mean, that's kind of hoochie. So in the Black Arts Movement, we were more political. We were very outspoken and critical in everything. And we were being criticized because, protests, it was not universal. It was just showing anger and hostility. But we were challenging the so-called status quo. I don't see that happening. I see a lot of excellent writers, but I don't think that they are taking the offensive against some of the cultural things that are taking place. Now, with the hip-hop movement, and I'm not against all hip-hop. I think some of the hip-hop is very positive because you can't relate to this generation unless you know something about hip-hop. So when I go to prison, I talk about 50 Cent. Oh, Mr. Perkins, you know about 50 Cent? Well, I know a little bit about him.
Yeah.
Tupac, Eminem, and everything. I don't disassociate myself. A lot of men, adults, my age, they don't want to deal with it. How can you teach school without having some knowledge of hip-hop? It don't make sense.
Especially Tupac. I mean, Tupac was actually very political.
Well, that's right. Well, his mother was Black Panther. He came from a political, and he basically somewhat of a middle class. I saw, what's this, the guy that, the movie, the fat guy, that was killed. I can't think of it. Biggie.
In fact, I was going to say Biggie Small.
Yeah, Biggie Small.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I'm suggesting is that you cannot relate to this population if you're just going to go there and put that music down.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like a lot of it, the gangster rap, but to open up dialogue, you have to at least show some acceptance. If you're going to change behavior, you have to connect with the behavior that they are manifesting, and then try and change it slowly or gradually.
Let me ask you this. I'm thinking about the 60s when the Black Power movement and the Black Arts movement essentially began.
Right.
It wasn't the old timers that started that.
No.
And now, fast forward to today. Do you think that the old timers can motivate them, or will there have to be a new young lion come up from those ranks?
We need a Rap Brown, a Stokely Carmichael.
Yes.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Haki can't do it.
No.
We're too old. Conrad Worrell can't do it.
Right.
Some of those of us that are still perceived as militants, revolutionaries, and everything like that. We need a younger generation. We need to pass the baton. We got more young PhDs than we've ever had in the history. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of them. I mean, we got black intellectuals. For the most part, there's a wide disparity. It is becoming a class situation to some extent because it's you have a large population of blacks that are educated, intelligent, but it seemed like that they have not sort of gone back to reach out to those that have not gotten to where they have.
Then let me ask you this. The argument has been made that integration actually hurt the movement.
Of course. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that was the intent, because it destroyed the viable black institutions that we had. Everybody, look at in sports now. I went to 2 black colleges. I went to Winston-Salem Teachers College. I think I told you, Minister Farrakhan was there.
Okay.
We didn't know each other. We were the same age. He's 76, I'm 76. He was at Winston-Salem Teachers College. I played basketball. Most of the athletes had to go to HBCU schools. But when the integration came about, Alabama would not bring a black person on the team. Now, half the students are black. Mississippi, all those schools. So they have taken from the population that these black schools used to automatically draw. So that's just using sports. So you don't find any top HBCU because they don't get the athletes. They can't compete against University of Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, those schools. And the same thing with the faculty. Your brain thrust is at Harvard, Yale. Yes, honey. Oh, she got it to me. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. This is the book that I'm working on now. And that's the
proposed format of book titled Rise of the Phoenix, Voices from Chicago's Black Struggle, 1960 to 1975.
And those are articles.
Okay.
That I have edited, and you could, many of those people you know, some you may not know. And so
this will be a nice piece.
Well, hopefully, Third Roast was, we're going to start processing it next week, and hopefully this book will be out next year. So in a way, it collaborates with what I was doing with the art, but this is dealing with politics, religion, the whole movement. But the Black Arts movement became what it was because of the Black Power movement. So do you have a counterpart today like that? No. So the black artist does not have a strong political base to reflect his art. There's not a strong, we had it during the 60s, Black Power. And so the Black Arts movement was an appendage of the Black Power movement. You don't have that today. So these young, talented writers of all genres do not have a movement of resistance, a movement of liberation to nurture that art that they're doing.
Let me ask you this. Could that be, in some measure, a result of the success of the Black Power movement? Because back then, what we wanted was a bigger piece of the pie.
Yes.
And like you were just mentioning, now we have hundreds of PhDs.
Yeah.
We have black athletes on all the major teams. Yeah. We have black politicians. We have black heads of corporations.
Mayors,
right.
Governors.
Right. And back
now
then,
we got a president.
Yes. So have we fallen victim to our own success? What do you, is that a possibility? What do you think?
Well, some people would not attribute the Black Power movement as being a catalyst for what has happened. They put it all on the civil rights movement, you know, the integrationist, nonviolent. But I would say that the Black Power movement was not totally against integration, but it really was dealing with institution building. And this is why Hakeem Abudi is revered so much. So, what are the vestiges of the Black Power movement? Where are the black schools? Where are the black institutions? You don't have many. So in a way, it's almost a catch-22 type of response.
Let me ask you to clarify, because in my mind, the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement were almost like hand in glove. Right. They may have had different articulated goals, but ultimately the goal of each one of them was the betterment of the race.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
And so, but now you made sort of like a distinction between the two. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I don't think that the civil rights movement wanted to integrate everything. We're not thinking about maintaining black institutions. That to me is the key. Maintaining black institutions. The Jewish people have done it. Okay? They've done it very successfully, and yet they have integrated in so-called mainstream America. In terms of schools, and in terms of those institutions that impact the socialization. Again, I raised the question, who's having the greatest influence on the socialization? How are our kids being socialized? Who's socialized? Most of the socialization begins at home, but we know that the home, you know, is in jeopardy, the family, because of some of the problems we talked about. It's the schools. So, what are the kids learning in schools? And I think the kids are becoming smart enough to say something's wrong with this. Why are our kids in high school reading at the 4th or 5th grade level? I mean, they're not stupid. You know, I mean, it's something cognitively they're not developing on the par with a large number of the whites. Not that they're incapable of doing so.
But they've chosen not to.
They're bored. They're angry. Something is wrong. They have been taught that democracy is the greatest country on the planet Earth, and it probably is. Or something. That's why everybody's trying to get here. From Haiti, from Cuba, Africa. I mean, they were, you know, so from Poland, from the these countries,
China,
they want to come here.
Mexico,
That's
everywhere.
Right. They want to come here.
And ain't nobody trying to get out.
That's right. Because this is the land of opportunity. It's an enigma. America's a great country. But it seemed like those of us that have lived here and suffered the most under the most grievous oppression have not taken fully advantage of it. The poorest of our poor, we don't come close to the poverty that exists in Haiti, Ethiopia, some of those countries. I said, some of you kids, I mean, you wearing a Michael Jordan $150, you know, poor. I mean, you don't know what poor is. You know, you got a bathroom to go to, you know. In some of these countries that I'm talking about, they don't have that. Regardless of the oppression, they say, yeah, we come there and fight, you know, and live under the system, but at least there's an opportunity. For some reason, a lot of our kids don't see it that way. And I think that the educational system, again, the kids that I meet once a week in prison, they haven't finished school. They're very bitter, and they feel that they've been betrayed by the adults. Now, that may not be entirely true, but they see that their parents, even those that have been successful, are still treated, don't receive the same treatment. You could put on a three-piece suit at the showcase and be difficult to get a cab downtown sometimes, So your degree, what does it mean? And especially in Washington, D.C., man, to get a cab. So what I do, I go in the hotel and come out the hotel door and know I'll get a cab because the cabs are in line. The doorman will pull the cab up. But and sometimes I'm wearing a suit, maybe not a tie. So they still see that even black professionals are treated not in the same manner that whites are. And yet you got all that education and we don't see any great improvement in the way that you are being treated. So what is that education doing for you? This is how they rationalize. And it may be irrational thinking, but this is how they perceive a lot of the black professionals. And we go there to these kids, black professionals, lawyers, doctors, and tell them how successful we are and we came. They don't want to hear that stuff. I stopped doing that. They don't want to hear that. They want to deal with today. So you tell them I grew up in the public housing and I had it difficult and everything like that, and now I got my PhD. You can do the same.
That's worthless.
Yeah, they don't want to hear that stuff. So I don't go to those. I'm invited, to give these pep speeches. I don't do that anymore. Let somebody else do it. That's not for me. You got to bring them something else. You got to bring them something more substantive in terms of what can impact their lives today. This is, let's see if I can get this. This is something I've developed. You could have that.
Thank you.
That I use. It's not a solution to anything, but at least it makes an attempt.
Sankofa, male responsibility.
Sankofa, yeah.
Sankofa, okay.
Yeah.
Male responsibility curriculum.
Return to the past. That's the, and so it's 18 curriculum lessons. At least it's an attempt to involve kids in a process that hopefully will have some type of influence on their behavior. Okay, so you could inspire kids, but that's just temporarily. What are you going to do pragmatically to help these kids deal with these problems that they're facing? So you got a lot of great motivational speakers. I'm not a motivational speaker. I don't want to be. You get kids high, they feel good, but when you leave after you collect your big honorarium, the kids, it goes away. It's just like hearing the good sermon from the preacher, and after the sermon, if there's nothing else there, tangible, then, it's so this is what's missing. I'm not against motivational speakers. We got some outstanding, I get high sometimes hearing some of them, feel good and everything like that. But then it goes away. It doesn't remain because there's nothing substantive to sustain that inspiration. And
let me ask you this. This is this gets to why they might not be performing in these institutions of of learning, higher or otherwise. Could it be possible that it goes back to that street image that we were talking about earlier. In the street, that book learning doesn't really have a lot of cachet. And when you get them in the classroom situation, often, I mean, I'm a student at Chicago State, and often I will see some of the kids there underplaying their intellect.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to let it be known that they're smart.
Yeah.
They're actually dumbing themselves down.
Yeah. Because
they want to project a more positive street image.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
Well, I don't know, because when I was in school, the last thing we wanted to be called was a dummy.
Yeah.
I mean, we all wanted to excel. When I was in grammar school, so the so-called nerve, I mean, we all wanted to be nerds, you know, we wanted to do well. I mean, it's the last thing in the world. Now, you know, these kids, you know, they don't have that same goal in mind. Now, I only teach one class at Chicago State. I got students who are satisfied with a C, some with a D. They don't want to do the work. Well, Mr. Perkins, you know, these are college students. Then I got some exceptional students. I would give them A plus if I could. But you got some students who are just satisfied with a C. Oh, okay, that's all I want to do is get over. Now, Chicago State, you know, I'm not putting any excursions against Chicago State. I've been there about 15 years, teaching off and on, doing things. But it's a last-ditch school. I mean, they're trying to raise the bar, but you got the dropout rate is like 30% of the freshman class of males won't be there in the junior year. They think they're still in high school. I don't know if you see them sitting around jabbing, talking. You know, they don't understand that they're in an environment for higher education. And not all of them now. You got some outstanding some, but I'm talking about a disproportionate number, 10, 15, 20%. I know what the attrition rates are, because Romy Lowe, that's what she does. And the male students, half of them are not there by senior year. So,
but can the school fix that? Well, I mean, the mission of Chicago State is to give an opportunity to everyone.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is a lot of kids that perhaps did not do especially well in high school, they get to start college.
That's right. That's right.
And that is a laudable mission.
It is.
But of necessity, almost, there's going to be a high dropout rate. Because they've got Chicago State has a high bar.
That's right. Yeah, it has gone up quite a bit since Dr. Cross.
Right. They have a high. So if you don't cut the mustard, you will not be there. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
So the question becomes, why are these students satisfied with a D?
Because they were satisfied in high school, and some were just automatically promoted. You see.
And the follow-up question becomes, can you change that? And if so, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's very difficult. They're coming up with some programs. In fact, they're coming up with a male department that will deal with attrition.
Okay.
Dr. Bryan, they got a $250,000 grant, so they starting that. I think some people are conscious of that very same. I don't know if you Romy Lowe. That comes under enrollment, and especially among the males. The females is a little different.
Yes.
You know, but it's the males, and they are addressing that. They got the upward bound programs that are trying to, prepare students for a college environment and to take advantage of it. because tuition's now what, $8,000-9,000 full-time student, 10, 12. Used to be about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of grants out there.
Of course.
A lot of loans.
But somebody's paying for it.
Somebody's paying for it.
Somebody's paying for it. So you take advantage of that. That's the point I'm trying to make. The opportunity is there, and not enough of our young people are taking advantage of that. If you go in 1 or 2 years and then dropping out, you know, you just wasted. You might as well just go to junior college. And that whole system may be a failure too. They're looking at that whole junior college, which was to prepare students to go into a 4-year college. But if you look at a number, it's a very small percentage from the junior college. It's been criticized. But then everyone doesn't have to go to college. Learn a trade.
Yes.
Learn a vocation. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You may make more money than a professional anyway. Be a plumber, be a mechanic, but learn some type of skill that can enhance your career. Other than that, you're going to end up on the streets.
Or in prison.
Getting involved in the easiest career, selling drugs. That's half these kids. That's all they talking about, selling drugs.
Slinging rocks.
Yeah. So, no, I'm not saying everyone should go to college. No. Why? There's other, a bus driver makes $45,000-50,000 a year, but you have a number of women driving these buses. Where are the men? Half of them can't pass the drug. You know, you have to take a urine drop. Well, you have a number, mostly women, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That job pays about $40,000-45,000. That's not that bad. I mean, you know, some professionals don't make that. Teachers don't make that. So, the women are taking advantage of these opportunities and doing the best that they can. The enrollment is much higher in women. In most colleges, you have higher enrollment and graduation among. I went to grammar school graduation last night. My wife and I audited this place, 111 Cicero. It was very obvious that out of the 200, I think 130 were girls, and then the other 65, 70 were boys. So, and yet, the fastest growing prison population are women. Women are going into the prison system. A lot of people don't know that. Oh, yes. So, these girls are having all kinds of problems. I don't know if they're mimicking the boys in high school. You go to some of these schools and these girls are just, you know,
off the hook.
Yeah. So we got some major problems. But we had major problems when I was young growing up. And, you know, we've never grew up in a Camelot community. So, you know, I mean, I grew up in Ida B. Wells. You had gang bangers. They didn't have guns and shooting. They weren't selling drugs, but we had all kinds of problems. But we did have a sense of community and a sense of pride and a sense of achievement. The guys I grew up with, as poor as we were, and we had some hope. I still meet with the 39ers. They meet guys around my age. They meet once a month at the Pancake House on 87th.
Who are the 39ers?
Guys that grew up in Ida B. Wells.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. We go back 50, 55. They call me Eugene. They don't call me Useni. They call me Gene. You know, that's you know. But we meet once a month. About 10, 15 of us, sometimes 20. Because we've kept that relationship. So, you know, and all of them are not professionals, but they're doing something. They're working for the telephone company. They're working for the fire department. You know, got a job, doing something. And yet we came out of Ida B. Wells. You know.
When did you leave Ida B. Wells?
I left Ida B. Wells in 46 when I graduated from
so
50.
Ida B. Wells was relatively new then.
Oh yeah. Well, we moved in 1941. Moved in 1941. We thought it was paradise. Before that, I was living in a apartment where we didn't have a refrigerator. We had to put the ice man. We had to put the ice out on the
old
window.
Ice box.
The ice box, you know, every day. Put the milk around the ice and everything. Yeah. So when we moved to Ivy Wells, we had a refrigerator, man. My mother was so happy. That was a blessing, man. And we supposed to have been poor. We were only paying $26 a month, but that was hard. My father had a newsstand, but it was never intended to, you know, for 2 or 3 generations to stay in public housing. But it ended up where you had, 3 generations staying in public housing. Easily. But Ida B. Wells, Robert Teller, and all of those, now they've torn them all down.
Yeah, Ida B. Wells is gone now.
Yeah, Ida B. Wells, yeah. And so they're putting up condos and other types of housing in that Bronzeville area. I don't know where the poor people are going. They're out there in the suburbs now, and they're having all kinds of problems out there.
But there's a group in Ida B. Wells, because we spoke to them just a few months ago. They've kept the community together to some extent. Yeah. The ones that were there when they decided to regentrify that area.
Yeah.
And they're under the impression that the new development is going to have some place for them to come back to. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm down there quite a bit. My brother still lives in that area, the Lawless Gardens, which is at 35th. Harold Lucas with the Bronzeville Association, you know, they're very active. So a lot of my churches in Bronzeville, Hartsville United Methodist Church on 34th and Cane Drive. So I'm in that area quite a bit, and I do see a lot of development, and what you are saying is probably true. You know, I always think about, I used to love Charles Dickens. I still love him, great writer. In Tell the Two Cities, he opens up that book. It was the best of times and worst of times. You know,
it's a classic line.
That's right. And that's what we know. Look, I mean, that's why everybody won't come to America. As bad as things may be, crime and everything, people want to come here because this is a land of great opportunity. I've never been hungry in my life. Unless I was fasting, but that was my choice. I ain't never been hungry. I'm saying I ain't never been hungry one day in my life. Now, people can't say that in other countries.
No.
I ain't never been hungry one day in my unless I was fasting.
Unless I chose to be hungry.
Right.
And that's not real hunger.
So, yeah, that's not hunger. So I've never been hungry one day in my life. And other people in other countries can't say that. What the heck? Look, I mean, what the heck? I'm not rich, but I'm not poor, man. You know?
These are nice digs.
Oh, that's right. So what? Got me an old car. I can travel. I'm going to South Carolina next week. I've been to Africa about 14 times.
Okay.
I mean, what the heck? I've traveled all over, almost. I've been to Paris. I mean, what the heck? You know, I'm just a black man struggling. So, no. And I love Africa. One time I thought about, but it hasn't been too successful for those of us that wanted to relocate in Africa, unless you bring there a lot of resources that can sustain you. And I have come to the point, and I'm African. I'm not a Negro. I'm not black. I'm an African American.
The necklace around your neck?
I was installed as a chief in the village of Shume.
Okay.
Shume is in Ghana. So I was installed.
And that is the
yeah, this is what they gave me. They gave me
the indicia of chief.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Chief, yeah. Of Shume village. And I thought about living, but you know what? that would be difficult for me. I've been here all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been used to certain amenities. I've known people that have went to Africa to live, but they come back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any. The closest would be some of the black Israelites that are in Israel now. First they went to Liberia, from Chicago, that have the store on 75th. But for the most part, the African Americans I know that went, because they could not sustain themselves. You can't. There's no welfare there unless you got a source of income that can maintain you and make a contribution. What are you going to do? You can't go there and get a job unless you're working for the government. So you can go there and teach for a while. I know people that have done that, but that's does not sustain over a long period. So I've come to the point, this is as much my country as anybody else.
Yeah.
It's built on our backs.
Yeah. Black history is American history.
Hey, so what the heck, shoot. If it wasn't for us, America would not be what it is anyway.
Mm-hmm. People don't understand.
So,
but it is slavery that built Wall Street.
That's right. Built the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Built these. So what we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So the African movements have not been that successful except for a small group.
Mm-hmm.
And the group I can best think of is the Israelites that went to Liberia, and they had all kinds of problems in Liberia, and now they have doing pretty well in Israel, I understand.
Okay.
But the original black Israelites, the Falashi, are in Ethiopia. That's where they are. Okay. I've been there. I've talked with them. All they do is speak Hebrew. And they're black as coal. The Falashi, near Gondor in Ethiopia. So it's something to the Old Testament. Old Testament is the story of the Jews. That's what it is. It's their story, the Old Testament, not the New Testament. Who were the original Jews? Probably look like you.
Yeah. But that's a whole different story, because I mean there's a number of the argument has been made in the black community that the label Jew has been stolen from black people by those that are in Israel now. Yeah. They are claiming to be Jews.
Yeah, probably so. There's probably some validity to that when you look at the original. And when you go to Ethiopia and see the Falashi, that's what they call them. And all they do is speak Hebrew. And they got the Star of David, and they were airlifted, a lot of them, to Israel. So, but the Old Testament is the story of the Jews, God's favorite people. Story of the Jews. How accurate it is depends upon your faith.
Yes. So
I don't really, I'm a Christian, and because as some people say, they're none but fairy tales. Well, it all depends upon your faith. You don't have to see everything. Evidence of things not seen. So I don't want to argue that. There's a higher power. There's a God.
Oh, there's no question.
How can we be around you? You just look at me, just take a walk around the lakefront, and you know that there's a.
Are you mentioned that your ministry? You are a minister?
No.
Okay.
But I had my prison ministry.
Okay.
At my church, an HIV ministry.
Okay.
I'm not a minister.
Okay.
But we do have a prison ministry.
Okay.
But before, I was doing this 30, 35, 40 years ago. And then I was talking to my minister, Reverend Sanders, because before that I was a member of New Covenant Church. And she said, yes, that is ministry. See, I didn't think that what I was doing was ministry, because it wasn't Bible class. It wasn't dealing specifically with the scriptures. But she said, if you're reaching out, trying to help young people to improve and everything, that is a
ministry.
Yeah, that's ministry. And so, I have sort of infuse a little bit more scriptures into it. But basically, we deal with what you see in that workbook: social skills, social development, cognitive development, things like that. But I was doing that for years. I didn't know it was a ministry. And she said, yes, that is. You're trying to help people. You're trying to, and
that makes you a minister.
It's been very gratifying. The problem is I can't get enough black men to participate. In my church, you can count the black men on one hand sometimes. Very few. But that's characteristic of a lot of churches, I think. Although Meeks, he gets a lot of, men. And even my daughter, she's out at Trinity.
But that really just sort of bespeaks the community as a whole.
Yeah, black men, I use the word missing in action and absent without leave.
AWOL.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about all black men, but enough. Yeah, brothers. And then, see, there's another group of brothers that hang out at Valores. Just sit around, talk stuff all day, don't do nothing. Just talk nostalgia, reminiscing, look at the women, talk about what they used to do. Get your butt out here and work with some of these young men. Do something with yourself. Do something with your life. Okay, that's what I tell them. Mentor somebody. You're sitting around there drinking coffee, talking all that stuff. They got a group in Valores. I stopped by there. You know where Valores? On 51st Street. It's a restaurant.
On 51st and
near Lake Park.
Oh, I know where that is.
Yeah. It's And when I say this, people think I'm just critical of black men. Bad. I'm bashing black men. But, some of them
we are one.
Successful, What the heck, you retired? What are you doing with your life? You just sitting around talking about what you talking about sports. You love to talk about sports, Talk about the touchdown you made 40 years ago. You still reliving that, vicariously. That's what I mean. Black men need to be more active. They need to be more involved. They need to be in these schools. Like Phil Jackson, with the Black Star, trying to get black men involved. Go to these schools. Do something with yourself. What are you sitting around? You're drawing Social Security. Make something, Don't just sit around and talk about these niggas running around. Niggas are running around. Yeah, because you sitting on your ass. What are you doing? Shoot.
Yeah.
So I am critical of black men. And we're expecting somebody else to do it. Who's going to do it? The whites are not going to. Do you blame them? Sure.
No. In fact, the argument could be made that they want you to do nothing.
Yeah. These prisons, it's a prison complex. Look, they was going to close Pontiac Prison last year. Man, the town, they went berserk. That would shut down 60% of our employment. We worked there. And now it has stayed open. They beg for these prisons. Look at the food service. Look at the jobs.
The security, everything.
Yeah, what the heck? They was going to close it down. The white community out there said, no, you can't do that. Keep the niggas locked up, So it's an industry. Over 2 million. The highest of any country. It used to be the Soviet Union or South Africa. Now it's America. We in prison. They said 1 out of every 3 black men has had some contact with the criminal justice system, either on parole, on probation, waiting trial, in detention, or in prison. 1 out of 3, man. It was 1 out of 5 on any given day.
Yeah.
And yet we're only about 8% of the national population, 8 or 9%, and we make up 55 or 60% of the prison population. keep the niggas in prison too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talk all your stuff and everything like that. All you're doing is killing each other. I'm not advocating killing anybody. You ain't going in. You ain't killing white folks. You killing each other. That's all black on black crime. What is it? 90% of these brothers are killing each other. 90% are in prison killing each other, robbing each other, beating up each other.
Yeah.
And now the Hispanics are doing the same thing in Pilsen. So you gonna keep blaming this on the white man? He doesn't have to conspire. He just sits around. You're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
You have to assume some responsibility. Educate your kids. Have resources for your kids. Little League baseball. But I mean, and black men have to do this. These women are getting fed up. Women are leaving homes today. They've never done that in the past. They're getting fed up with this.
It's a hard job.
It's a hard job. The man's not around, jabbing around, everything like that. So it's serious. But I don't know if men, you know, so, you know, how this relates to art, I've been very fortunate and blessed to have had careers in art, because I'm a social worker by profession.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I don't want to be, you know, I've been the president of an urban league in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
On the west side of Chicago, I was director of Better Boys Foundation Family Center for a long time. Warner Saunders, I worked under Warner Saunders. TV5, he's a social worker before he went on television. So I've been able to function in the field of social service and also in creative arts simultaneously.
You're blessed.
Without a conflict. So I get the best of both. People ask me to come in and speak about youth. I can do that. I'm teaching playwriting.
Okay.
And I haven't read your play yet, but it seemed interesting. I'm gonna try and get around to it because you know that's a love of mine. You know, writing plays. Have you written any plays?
That's the only play that I've written. But I've got 2 novels that I published and a collection of short stories.
Wonderful. So
and I'm working on another novel now.
Well, let me know when your meetings, because I like to come to one of your meetings.
I can tell you that now.
And I would.
It is
because Sam's never mentioned it, and I don't see Sam as much as I, you know, but.
I tell you, let me turn this recorder off because I think we're about done.